as I mentioned, as I mentioned in a previous video, um, I always pay attention to the highlights. I always pay attention on days when Raw is on or SmackDown or Dynamite to pay attention and see if there's anything worth watching or anything. What happened on the paper, what happened on the shows. Yeah, I mean, I always do. The fact of the matter is, now with me doing that, that's gonna set up to allow me to basically have a new video series where basically I go through the previous night's episode of whatever respective wrestling company had an episode on that night and go, break down the show. This way it allows me to not have to talk about it with other, six other topics, and I could break down things and spend time talking about things that I see as important or things that I see as, stuff that should be paid attention to, you know, like what happened last night on Dynamite with the TNT Championship. The question since last week when Powerhouse Hobbs won the Face of the Revolution tournament or the Face of the Revolution ladder match, and basically the announcement came down that Hobbs would be facing either Joe or Wardlow for the TNT Championship 1 week. 1 week later, and a few days after the title defense at Revolution, the question came down of what's going to happen. Because, I mean, if Wardlow won, then Wardlow would be defending this title days after winning the championship from Samoa Joe. And as we know now, that is exactly what happened with Wardlow defending the title against Hobbs last night. And I mean, the question that was on everybody's mind after Revolution was, what happens now with Wardlow? Are we going to see Wardlow reach his potential? Are we going to see Wardlow have a better reign than what he did last year when he won the title from Scorpio Sky? And honestly, I think there were people that thought no, that maybe Tony Khan has given up on Wardlow. That maybe Tony Khan has given up on him, and maybe looks at Wardlow as somebody that has a ceiling as opposed to somebody that has potential. I don't know if that's the case, that Wardlow has a ceiling, but I think it goes back to something that I said when Wardlow first broke up with Max last year, and that is that he needs to work with somebody who can teach him how to work. He needs to work with somebody who knows what they're doing in the ring and can, give him somebody to follow. Sort of like Samoa Joe. I mean, Samoa Joe's been doing this for so many, for how many years that it would be difficult to understand that somebody like, Wardlow would not be able to learn something from being in the ring with Samoa Joe. I firmly believe that Wardlow did learn something from being in the ring with Samoa Joe. But I was talking about Wardlow being in the ring with somebody like Dustin Rhodes. Or Wardlow being in the ring with somebody like Scorpio Sky, where he can learn something from them. Kazarian, Christopher Daniels, where he can learn something from them. Bryan Danielson. And get better as it progresses. Sort of like Cena did when sort of like John Cena did when he feuded with the big guys after winning his first world title. Chris Jericho, Shawn Michaels, Kurt Angle. The list goes on and on and on. Unquestionably, that helped Cena in his progression because he was able to learn from people who know what they're doing in the ring and could carry him. I'm not saying Cena was still doing that later on. I'm saying that Cena learned from those guys because at that point when Cena won his first world title, Cena was still green. To say Wardlow is not partially still green, I think that would be ignoring the fact that he kind of is. And that having him against somebody who knows what they're doing and could help him would only help. Maybe that's why. Maybe that's why. What if you guys don't want to hear, if you guys don't want to hear a spoiler, then please, ignore this part. But fast forward a little because there's going to be other stuff we talk about. But Powerhouse Hobbs is the new TNT champion, and QT Marshall is now involved. And is it possible that that's the reason why they got QT involved? Because it's unquestionable that QT is somebody that is highly respected in the locker room of AEW. I mean, it's possible, yeah. It is possible, yeah. But I mean, what got Diamond Dallas Page better was Diamond Dallas Page going to the power plant on days off and training. Even when he was at the top of his game, he would still be training. Even when he was somebody that the company had invested in, he was still training. I'm not saying Wardlow's not doing that. I'm just saying that there needs to be, you need to always be learning. You need to always be getting better. And I'm not saying that it's all on Wardlow. The booking, his booking is not his responsibility. It's Tony Khan's. But I really hope that they have a plan for Wardlow. I really do hope they have a plan for Wardlow outside of him coming back and getting revenge on Powerhouse Hobbs and defeating Powerhouse Hobbs for the TNT Championship. Because how many times can Wardlow become the TNT Champion? How many times can Wardlow become TNT Champion before people stop caring about him getting taken out, coming back, winning the TNT title? You can't keep recycling the same formula. Eventually, it's not going to work. Eventually it's not going to work. Eventually it's not going to be the proper formula anymore. A good formula anymore because you're going to overdo it. Especially considering the fact 2 weeks before, 3 weeks before Revolution, Wardlow came back from being taken up by Samoa Joe, or maybe a month before, he came back from being taken up by Samoa Joe to win the title, and then he ends up losing the title a few days later. So I think that if you're going to do this, there needs to be something outside of him coming back and winning the TNT Championship as what you do when Wardlow returns. Because the expectation can't be that he's just going to come back and win the TNT title again. Because will people care about him winning the TNT title again when he comes back? Because clearly he was written off again. Clearly with that powerbomb. Again, if you haven't seen it, please feel free to go on YouTube, look it up, and take a look at it for yourself. Because it was clear, it was effective, and it was done right, and it looked gnarly. But either way, you can't keep doing that because it's not gonna work out eventually. But I also hope for Powerhouse Hobbs' sake that he has a positive run with the championship and is able to start showing the potential that so many people saw him with or saw him have and wish that he was able to, start showing off a lot sooner. But I think now is the time when AEW is ready to invest in Powerhouse Hobbs. And hopefully it not only an investment in Hobbs, but also an investment into the TNT Championship. Now, with AEW Past Revolution, we start looking forward to the next pay-per-view, that being Double or Nothing in May, and the question being, what is AEW in a post-Revolution time? Well, MJF is still the AEW World Champion, the Guns are still the Tag Team Champions, and now Powerhouse Hobbs is the the TNT Champion, with Jamie Hayter as the Women's Champion, and the feud between Saraya, Toni Storm, and Britt Baker and Jamie Hayter is still raging on, especially now with Ruby Soho, a part of the baddies with Saraya and Toni Storm. Chris Statlander is set to come back soon, as Chris Statlander was somebody that was supposed to dethrone the TBS champion, that being Jade Cargill. So maybe we see Chris Chris Statlander return and start feuding with Jade Cargill in the build-up to Double or Nothing, excuse me. I've said this before and I'll say this again, a little bit of a deconstruction, I guess, of I don't want to see Cesaro and Wheeler Yuta on both Ring of Honor and AEW on a weekly basis, maybe once in a while, but if they're Ring of Honor champions, they should be on Ring of Honor programming and just Ring of Honor programming and not both AEW and Ring of Honor, because then you should be giving the titles from Ring of Honor to those guys. I understand why you're keeping them on Claudio and Wheeler and keeping them on AEW programming. It's because you want to give more exposure to Ring of Honor's titles, but there's a reason why you gave Ring of Honor its own weekly television show on the subscription service with Honor Club. It's because you wanted to break apart you wanted to separate Ring of Honor from AEW. If you're still having the champions appear, is it really separated? I don't know. The other question is, what does Ricky Starks do now after defeating Chris Jericho twice and that feud ending? And also, does this mean that the feud with Action Andretti is over? I will also point out in an interview, Chris Jericho mentioned that he does not need to get the win back over Action Andretti, as I think he also views it like I do, that if he gets the win back over Action Andretti, it will dethrone and, basically stunt the momentum of the youngster, as basically the win over Jericho is what got him going. But the interesting thing to note is that I believe it's sometime this month, AEW will make their debut in Winnipeg, Manitoba, in Winnipeg, Canada, which is the home of not just Chris Jericho, but also Don Callis and Kenny Omega. So I'm sure something will happen in Winnipeg with the hometown heroes, but also basically what happens next. The Trios Championships, what happens with the Guns and FTR? That match will likely take place at Double or Nothing in May, if not beforehand, maybe at Battle of the Belts, if there's another Battle of the Belts coming. But hopefully, when it does take place, FTR wins the one set of tag team titles that eluded them last year when they were the leaders of the tag team division, that being the AEW World Tag Team titles. Let me know down in the comment section below what you expect from AEW post-Revolution, and if you have any thoughts on Powerhouse Hobbs, the directionless nature of Wardlow, or anything else relating to AEW, let me know down in the comment section below, and I will see you in the next video.